Ready to go. Good morning, all. Welcome. Welcome to the Province V 2021 Synod. This is not an electing synod. That'll be next year. But in the meantime, we've got lots to hear and tell you about. I'm Jane Sislucis. I'm the Vice President of the province, and I live in Northern Michigan. Today, we'll be hearing from Gay Clark Jennings, the President of the House of Deputies. We'll be talking about networks and all sorts of ways that you can connect through your province. As we gather today, let us remember that we are in Province V, where we work, live, teach, and learn, and build community. We are on sacred land and territories of Indigenous peoples. We recognize the repeated violations of sovereignty, territory, and water perpetuated by European and other settlers that have impacted the original inhabitants of this land. We extend our respect to citizens of these First Nations peoples who live here and their ancestors who have lived here for over 500 generations, and to all Indigenous peoples. We also know that this acknowledgement is insufficient. It does not undo the harm that has been done and continues to be perpetuated now against Indigenous peoples, their land, air, and water. And lastly, let us recommit ourselves to the important work of truth and reconciliation required for healing all of God's people. As I said, we'll be hearing from Gay Clark Jennings here. Welcome, President Jennings, and other great things to talk about, but we will start with prayer. And please feel free to follow along. Alleluia, risen Lord, come with us. Jesus, divine companion, as the day unfolds, give us strength to understand and eyes to see as you teach us to walk the soft earth related to all that lives. Amen.
A reading from Wisdom. Wisdom freed from a nation of oppressors, a holy people and a blameless race. She entered the soul of a servant of the Lord, withstood dread rulers with wonders and signs. To the saints she gave the reward of their labors, and led them by their marvelous way. She was their shelter by day and a blaze of stars by night. She brought them across the Red Sea. She led them through mighty waters. But their enemies she swallowed in the waves and spewed them out of the depths of the abyss. And then, Lord, the righteous sang hymns to your name and praised with one voice your protecting hand. For wisdom opened the mouth of the mute and gave speech to the tongues of a newborn people.
We have been buried with Christ by baptism into death, so that just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, so we too might walk in newness of life. I asked my Lord, and he listened to me. Where do we ask for God's wisdom today?
Risen Christ, open our hearts to your grace and truth.
May we walk in newness of life.
Teach us to love others in the power of the Spirit.
May we walk in newness of life.
Please feel free to add your particular intercessions or thanksgivings. Strengthen us as witnesses to your love.
May we walk in the newness of life.
let us all join together in saying the Lord's Prayer. If you would unmute yourself and let each of us use whatever form of the Lord's Prayer we are most comfortable with, and in whatever language we wish. Let us pray. Our Father,
our deliverer,
Who art in
water
heaven,
and the Holy
thy
Spirit,
name,
Hallowed be thy name.
and buried with
hallowed be thy
Christ,
name.
Be done on earth as
Kingdom
it is in
is to
heaven.
renew
on
earth
earth
Give
as
us
in
this
heaven.
day our
Give
daily
us this
bread.
day our
daily
daily bread.
Forgive
Forgive
us
us
our
our
trespasses,
trespasses,
and deliver
forgive
us
those who
from
trespass
temptation.
against us.
Give us from the time of
Lead us
trial,
brought
not
us
into
to
temptation, but
the
deliver us from
deliver us
evil.
from evil.
For
Thine is the
thine is
The
the
kingdom,
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 the
the power, and the
power, and the
glory,
glory,
forever
forever and
forever
ever.
and ever.
Amen.
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 God, our deliverer, by water and the Holy Spirit, we have been buried with Christ and raised to the new life of grace. Give us inquiring and discerning hearts, the courage to will and to persevere, a spirit to know and to love you, and the gift of joy and wonder in all your works. Amen.
Amen.
Alleluia. Risen Lord, come be with us.
And teach our hearts to live in you. Hallelujah.
Good morning. I am Heather Barta. I am the coordinator of Province V, and I'm thrilled to have you all here. If you unmuted yourself for the prayers, please remute yourself to cut down on background noise. There'll be times for question and answers as we come to pieces later. It is my job to do the housekeeping parts right now. So most of us have used Zoom a lot. There is a chat where you can chat with everyone. So if you have something you'd like to say, share with the group, you can put that in the chat. And when we get to the Q&A time, after President Jennings' time, then you can use that as one of your options for asking questions. If you have things that show up during the time and you need attention or help, put it there. I'll be able to see it and help you. There are some tech stewards along with us who are also helping to make sure that the questions are answered and people are able to get the information that you need. The other piece is all of the slides that you see today will be up on the website and in a follow-up email. So if you see something and you're like, wait, what was that? Don't worry, that will be to you. And it may already actually be up on the website. So you'll be able to get access to any of the information. We definitely want to make sure that you have the information that you need to be a Synod deputy and be able to serve today and then next year, which you'll hear more about in a minute. Another way to get our attention is to use your raised hand icon. If you know how to do that, you can use that. And if you are on any of the socials, hashtag Prov V Synod, the 5 being a V, Prov V Synod. So I think that takes care of most of the housekeeping pieces. If you have not renamed yourself, please rename yourself now. This just helps us to know which diocese you're in, so we can scroll through the participants and see where everyone is from. Great representation today. We're at 92 people right now. I'm so thrilled. So welcome everyone. I am so glad that you are here. Enjoy the Synod time and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Heather. So you find ourselves here in the Midwest, here in Province V, and we are 14 dioceses altogether. Each diocese contributes to the whole structure. So there's an apportionment paid, which then helps support the work you see here, our coordinator and our functioning of our province together. The province of the Midwest is, as you know, a mixed bag of small towns and big cities and long stretches of farmland and lakeshore. With our similarities and our differences both, that it means that we can connect over some very different things. Our province has also seen quite a lot of transition lately in the episcopate. So we welcome any new bishops who might be with us and send our greetings to those who have moved on. So our province is represented by members of the board who are nominated, or I should say appointed by the bishop in their own diocese. And on the board, we have an elected number, a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. And then the province elects 2 members to executive council, one lay, one ordained, and not at the same time, they overlap. I am your Province 5 representative to executive council. Please feel free to contact any of us with questions or concerns, and you can find our contact information on our website. And on that note, my role as lay representative to executive council will be up at the end of next general convention. So next year at the synod, you could run to replace me. More about that later. We also have many networks, and the networks we'll be hearing more about in some detail as we move along today. But some of them, for example, are Creation Care, Dismantling Racism, and Young Adult Ministry. So again, we'll be hearing from some of them. We also have affiliated organizations. So these are organizations that already exist in other places, but we have a concentrated effort here in the province. We'll be hearing from them as well. Again, check our website for more information. And we are so excited to tell you, and Heather will give you more details, that another big provincial gathering will be happening next April, at the end of April, a whole year away from right now, in South Bend, Indiana. So I pass it over to you, Heather.
I am so thrilled. Big provincial gathering. While we were supposed to be together today, I am glad that we have the chance to gather here. And we're just going to pray that by a year from now, we're going to get together. So pretend with me for today that we'll be together. There'll be a big provincial gathering. I'll look forward to seeing, 300 to 500 of you all together in South Bend, Indiana. The format for this one will be a little bit different. If you attended the BPG in 2019, there were a lot of little breakout rooms and a lot of little workshops that happened throughout that time. The focus of this big provincial gathering is the support part of Connect Network support, right? The theme of Province 5, Connect Network Support. So we're moving on to that support area where we have some networks that are formed or are forming, and that's going to give those networks some time to do some really deep work together. They'll have some significant time to be able to have planning time or learning time, and each network time will look different depending on their needs, their hopes and their goals for their network and sharing information across the province and across the church. So that will be on Friday of that weekend, and then on Saturday will be the electing synod. So if you are a synod deputy, then please make sure that you are there and present in that room to be able to be part of that. There will be a lot more news coming about all of this, of course, but please mark your calendar for that and look for details about the actual big provincial gathering. We're also in the process of looking at some pre-conference trainings through some of the departments and organizations across the church. So we're working on all of that right now. And remember that all of this information will be sent in a follow-up email, and I'll have all of that information, but please, please have that on your calendar. Somebody's asking right on the slide, BPG 29 to 30. And all of it will be in a follow-up email. The other thing I want to talk about briefly this morning are just the resources available. If you are new, if this is your first provincial meeting, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. Province 5 is a great province to be in. I'm a little biased, but Province 5 is a great province to be in. We are doing a lot of things at the provincial level to help you in your local contexts. So our job at the province is to help you in your ministry at your local parish, diocesan levels. Like, what do you need to do your work better? What connections do you need to have? What support do you need to have? That's my job, is to help make all of those things happen, make those connections. And then the work of the province is really to take it back, get the support that you need from people across the province, and then take that back so you're better in your local ministry. You can do a few things to stay informed. One is to make sure you check out the website, and Rick had dropped that into the chat. Like our Facebook pages, there's the main Facebook page, there's a Dismantling Racism Facebook page, and then there's a Creation Care Facebook group. So all of those can help you get connected with either the general work of the province or those networks specifically. Connect in with the networks, check out the list of networks. You're going to learn more about those today, and in the follow-up emails, see which ones are the work that you're doing or that you want to do. Connect with the organizations that are part of the Episcopal Church that have representation within the province. There are many amazing things that they're doing. Shout out to ECW, who is having their provincial meeting this afternoon. So hopefully you got registered for that and you're able to attend if that is a group that you'd like to get connected in with. Thank you so much for being here today. Send me a private message or follow up with an email or a phone call if there is anything that I can do to be helpful to you in any way.
All right, thank you. And so we now enter the period of hearing from Gay Jennings. Let me just tell you a little bit about what that will look like. We'll hear from Gay for about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll see what she's got to share with us. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. Then we'll have some Q&A, and I will moderate it by keeping an eye on who's raised their hand first. So I'll do my best. With 90 plus participants, it'll be a bit of a challenge, so your patience will be welcome. So we welcome this morning Gay, the Reverend Gay Clark Jennings. She's been the president of the House of Deputies since 2012 and is currently serving a bonus year. She will conclude her time as the president at the close of the 80th General Convention that will be held in Baltimore, Maryland next July 2022. Gay was ordained in 1979 and is the first ordained woman to hold the position of the president of the House of Deputies. She is a 10-time deputy from the Diocese of Ohio and has called this province her home for some 40 years. Gay has a heart for justice and a head for governance. She has an encyclopedic knowledge about church polity and General Convention resolutions over the decades. She has what I like to call a healthy sense of humor and knows how to not take herself too seriously. We're grateful to you, Gay, for being willing to share your time with us, and welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jane. Good morning, everyone. As we begin, I want to acknowledge the traditional and ancestral land of the Erie and Mississauga people on which I live and from which I'm speaking to you today. I honor the people who lived and worked on this land, and I recognize the current and ongoing oppression of Native peoples and our church's participation in it. I give thanks for those who have come before me, honoring especially the legacy of this region's indigenous people, the ancient Erie or Panther people. I'm so glad to be with all of you today on Zoom. Province V is my province. I've lived and been canonically resident in Ohio for 41 years, and so it is especially good to have this opportunity to talk with you about how we can support one another in ministry. In recent years, I've noted and admired the way that Province V has reorganized. Thanks to Heather and all of you who are leaders on the executive board and officers of Province V. The way you've reorganized and reoriented yourself as a network dedicated to supporting Episcopalians and their local ministries is admirable. With the advent of your networks that have grown out of various passions for ministry at the grassroots level, Province V is beginning to be a network of networks. And this is truly a remarkable vision. It's not always easy in a church like ours, in which we sometimes love our hierarchy too much, to commit to collaborating and building relationships across established boundaries. We love our boundaries between dioceses, boundaries between lay and clergy, boundaries between bishops and the people of the church. Too often we forget that Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2 ahead of him into the world. I've been thinking a good deal recently about how the Episcopal Church can respond to the future we are facing, while still remaining true to the DNA of our Episcopal identity, which is the shared governance that makes our mission possible. I've come to the conclusion that we must understand what is essential to who we are as Episcopalians in order to distinguish between that and what we must dismantle or let go. That imperative has only become more urgent during the COVID-19 pandemic and our current reckoning with systemic racism. In the last 45 years, we Episcopalians have learned a great deal about our long and rich tradition of sharing authority among all orders of ministry. And that can help us participate in God's mission. These experiences have made us remarkably suited to connect, network, and support as you are doing here in Province 5. Later this year, we will celebrate the 45th anniversary of General Convention's vote on a short but transformative canonical amendment. It reads, quote, "The provisions of these canons for the admission of candidates and for the ordination to the 3 orders, bishops, priests, and deacons, shall be equally applicable to men and women." I was there on the day that vote took place, so let me tell you a little bit about it before we talk about why that long ago vote matters for your ministry today. I went to Episcopal Divinity School in Cambridge, Massachusetts for seminary, and while I was there, I met at a poker game in a dorm the man who has now been my husband for nearly 45 years. Albert and I were married on August 14th, 1976, just before our last year in seminary. Many of you know Albert. He is the rector of St. Timothy's in Macedonia here in the Diocese of Ohio. Just a second. So if you do know Albert, you know that he is extraordinarily patient. And if you don't, this story proves it. After we took our honeymoon and moved into our new apartment in Cambridge, I said, "Honey, could you set up the apartment while I go to Minneapolis to see what will happen?" What I wanted to see happen was the General Convention vote on the canonical amendment that I read to you, the one that would open the priesthood and the episcopacy to women. On September 15th, 1976, the House of Deputies passed the amendment, and on September 16th, the House of Bishops passed it on September 15th, and then on September 16th, the House of Deputies took up the legislation. I remember sitting in the bleachers in the House of Deputies, holding my breath and waiting for President John Coburn to announce the results of the vote by orders. The convention hall was packed, totally packed. And it was utterly silent. 58 clerical votes. 58 clerical votes and 57 lay votes were required for passage. You're gonna have to forgive me, I lost my spot here. 58 clerical votes and 57 lay votes were required for passage. And when the vote was announced, it was 60 clerical votes and 64 lay votes in favor. By a slim margin, history was made, and I'll never forget that day. In the 45 years since that tense day in Minneapolis, the leadership of women, both lay and ordained, has changed the church, the way we govern ourselves, and the way we understand broader issues of inclusion. The movement for women's leadership established networks, generated momentum, and raised up leaders. And in the decades since, those leaders and the ones who came after them have gone on to create new networks that have pushed for the full inclusion of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people in the life of the church, insisted that we deal with clergy sexual misconduct, and galvanized other movements for social justice. I recently spent time on Zoom, that's where everybody spends time with other people, Zoom, with seminarians at Sewanee who identify as female, and gave a lecture there that is now known as the Reverend Melissa Keene Women's Lecture. In that talk, I recommended to the students that they read an article by my friend Gary Hall, a seminary classmate, who delayed his own ordination by a year, refusing to take orders when his female classmates could not. It was a brave and courageous stand. In his essay, he notes 5 ways in which women's leadership has changed the church. I commend his essay to you also. It's included in a book titled Looking Forward, Looking Backward, published by Church Publishing and edited by Professor Frederica Harris Thompson. One of the ways that Gary says that women's leadership has changed the church is by enlarging our understanding of collaborative leadership, even in the face of what he calls a growing trend of Episcopal exceptionalism. We've discovered baptism as the primary warrant for all ministry, Gary says, and this discovery has emerged alongside the increasing authority of women in the church. And then he goes on to say something that I suspect was also at the core of Province V's decision to create networks for mutual support in ministry. He wrote, "Even though we call ourselves the Episcopal Church, our unique gift has little to do with our hierarchy. What makes us Anglicans is a shared commitment to prayer, action, and theological reflection, all done in a community where all orders of ministry, laity, deacons, priests, and bishops are present, empowered, and engaged." He goes on to say, over the past 40 years, we have been privileged as a community to live more fully into this vision of who we are and what we care about. Our history and future are on the side of baptism and its implications, end quote. As we prepare for General Convention next summer, let's remember those words, our history and future are on the side of baptism and its implications. This General Convention will be my final one as President of the House of Deputies, and due to the pandemic, I will have served in the office for a full 10 years by the time I hand the gavel over next summer. During my entire tenure, the Episcopal Church has been exploring ways to restructure for mission. Your work to create networks is part of this experimentation and discernment. And I'm proud that my home province understands that in order to be the church God is calling us to be in the years to come, we are going to need to change, and we are going to need to let go of some things. I hope that as we continue this discernment about our future, we'll be wary of calls to respond to declining membership in a secular, culture by circling the wagons, tightening up the hierarchy, and limiting the kinds of leadership we accept and the variety of voices we hear. Instead, I think we need to look at the sea changes of the last 45 years, which have opened up church leadership not only to women, but also to people of color, to LGBTQ people, and to younger people called to lead. Whatever we face next will require the wisdom, the work, and the witness of all the people of God in all orders of ministry and all walks of life. As we head to Baltimore next summer, please God, for the 80th General Convention, I want to suggest that we focus our thinking on 3 priorities. Not surprisingly, your focus on networking and connecting makes you very well prepared to consider each of these proposals. My first priority is that we get ourselves equipped with the tools we need for the work ahead. The House of Deputies Committee on the State of the Church is sending to General Convention a resolution asking that we allocate funds for a range of communication and collaboration tools that will foster the work of adaptive change in the church. This includes tools that will facilitate real-time collaboration, be responsive on mobile devices, and replace the extranet, for those of you who are familiar with the extranet, with a 21st century platform that can allow church leaders to collaborate in effective and efficient ways. For a year and counting, we've been called upon to work together virtually. And although we all long to be together in person, we also know that remote convenings and virtual collaboration are here to stay. The need for effective electronic communication platforms will only increase as new generations assume church leadership. We must call upon this new generation of leaders, those who are most in need of collaborative tools and those whose work has been most affected by the current lack of them, to lead this work. I hasten to add, though, that although I'm not one of the people to whom the church should be looking to for specific ideas about cutting edge technology, I still call deputies on the telephone with no notice, and it startles the ones under 40 every single time. I did learn, however, to use Slack during the pandemic, and it is a game changer. Even I can attest to the difference that robust collaborative tools can make in the church's ministry. The second priority I hope we consider at the next General Convention is program evaluation. Since 2015, General Convention has embraced 3 priorities: racial reconciliation and justice, creation care, and evangelism. In the last 2 triennial budgets, we have devoted millions of dollars to carrying out these priorities, both at the church-wide level and in the form of grants at the local, diocesan, and provincial levels. The 2-year transitional budget that General Convention will approve for the years 2023 and 2024 gives us an opportunity to conduct robust program evaluations that will help us learn more about what ministries are contributing to the outcomes we want to see, and where we can make changes that will help us be even more effective in participating in God's mission. Your work here in Province 5 will be critical to this kind of comprehensive look at how our church-wide programs are supporting and enriching ministry on the ground. The third priority I'd like to discuss is imperative, and it's evident in the newly released racial justice audit of Episcopal leadership. We must evaluate our church structures, particularly those most rooted in the colonial and imperial history of the United States and the United Kingdom. and begin the painful work of dismantling those that perpetuate systemic racism. In particular, as we prepare this budget, we must examine the terms and structures of our grants and covenants with other provinces in the Anglican Communion. Too often, these financial arrangements perpetuate inequitable relationships based not in mutual responsibility and interdependence in the body of Christ, but in imperialist models of dependence and paternalism that are at the heart of the racism that infects our church. In this work, we can perhaps learn from the recent restructuring of the Anglican Communion Office, which shifted its focus from London-based programs to a global effort to facilitate work carried out by, you guessed it, networks, along with commissions, mission agencies, and churches. Reestablishing our global relationships with mutuality and interdependence at their core will require us to recommit ourselves to new kinds of partnerships and new understandings of power. It will not be easy, but it is the urgent work to which God is calling us, and we must not avoid it any longer. I hope that during the next few months, you will think and pray and talk about your priorities for the years ahead, remembering that our history and future are on the side of baptism and its implications. Remember, legislative committees will be organized and ready to begin business by November. So there'll be opportunities to have your ideas heard and your proposed resolutions debated long before we arrive in Baltimore. So I'd love to hear more about what you're thinking about as we head towards General Convention, and to answer whatever questions you might have about General Convention or other matters. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start us off and then we'll see if any hands are raised in the meantime. So I have noted all of our challenges and the things that you think we ought to be working on in it. And I'm wondering about what might you be excited about in spite of all the things that we've been going through with COVID and just, you know, the changes in the globe. And do you have any excitement that that you want to add on top of the challenges that we have before us?
Well, I'm actually excited about the challenges, because I think it's going to take us into a new way of being church. But I'm excited about, you know, staying home on Sundays, like all the rest of you. I get to look, you know, I get to worship all over the world just by clicking on YouTube or Facebook. I'm excited. You know, people say, oh, you know, Episcopalians, God's frozen chosen. We're not frozen. We as a church here and beyond the shores of the United States, we're in 17 countries, remember, as the Episcopal Church, are finding new ways to evangelize, to reach people, to stay connected, to worship. And I think it's thrilling what people have come up with. Both clergy and lay leaders working together to meet needs in the communities in which they serve, or which they serve in new ways, worshiping in new ways, calling people into leadership in new ways. The interesting thing about being virtual right now is that people that we might not have noticed or considered are being called into new leadership roles. And I think that's going to happen as we go to General Convention, as we prepare for, I think many of you know that, because many of you are deputies, but not all of you, that the legislative, every resolution that comes to General Convention is referred to a legislative committee. And every resolution has to have a hearing that's part of our shared governance, that everybody has a voice as much as possible. And in the past, in order to testify, and anybody can testify to a legislative committee about a piece of legislation that matters to them, you had to be physically present at General Convention in order to do that. The way we're approaching it as we approach the 80th General Convention is that hearings will be held online, which means anybody, anywhere, can bring their passion, concerns, questions, ideas, and hopes to legislative committees as they consider resolutions before General Convention. So I'm excited about the ways people are finding to minister in challenging times, and the way that people have grown spiritually. Frankly, there are many parishes that have increased their attendance because, I mean, for instance, my husband's parish, they worship in the building, socially distanced. They have a radio transmission that people sit in the parking lot in their cars. It's like, you know, drive-in church, and people are at home watching on Facebook. And his attendance has gone up. You can't figure out who they all are, but it's gone up. And I imagine that's true for every congregation that's able to do that. So I'm excited about, we've been forced into change that I thought would take place over the next 2 decades, and it's taken place over the last year. And I think this is a seeding of what will happen in the next 5 years.
Thank you. We have a question from Anna. How can small churches or networks tap into the resources that are available at the national or regional level?
Well, the great thing about Heather and her newsletter that comes out from Province V, it's always chock full of things that are happening, not only on a provincial level, but things that are available on a church-wide level. Certainly your 2 executive council representatives, Matthew Cowden and Jane Sislusis, make available to all of you information about what's happening. So one of the things that's happened in Executive Council and General Convention is the budget contains far more, much more money for grants to congregations, dioceses, and provinces. So I encourage you to take it, become knowledgeable about those through your provincial coordinator and your Executive Council representatives, and apply. That's what it's there for.
Thank you. We have a question from Miriam McKinney. You can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I'm very interested in what you said about the level of inclusivity that we have enjoyed while being able to attend worship virtually. And as folks go back into their churches, actually, I hate the word back, but as people go into their churches going forward actually to worship, I'm hearing people say, well, it's just too hard to do both. I don't really know how we're going to figure that out. And I get that people are tired and that people are anxious to get into their buildings, but what would you say to folks who are not sure about continuing virtual worship and the loss of the inclusivity that we have found in this time? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. Deputy Miriam. Well, I hope, I understand that people are weary. It's been a long haul. And, but there are lots of resources and workshops happening to help people how to navigate this new electronic digital church era. What I would encourage people to do is think about the people who could not attend church before, and think about homebound people. And I keep hearing people how life-giving it is that their community that they can join in their community, even though they can't be there physically, be physically present. So I appreciate, especially in smaller congregations, that continuing hybrid worship is daunting. But like I said, I think there are a lot of resources and workshops happening to help people learn that. And perhaps that's something that Province V is already doing, or that could be something, a future offering. I encourage us to kind of battle through the weariness to make our reach, to extend our reach to people who want to be part of community, but are unable to attend in person. So I think it's a huge opportunity, but I appreciate the weariness. Now, I'll tell you one thing you can do too, is get some of the younger people, even if they're not churchy yet, and they're not involved in church, they're so technologically savvy, and enlist them to help. Now, they may think they're just helping, but you're also evangelizing them in some way. So try to expand your reach in terms of who could be helpful in making that happen.
These aren't all necessarily questions, but some of what's going on in the chat is about that, actually what you were talking about previously about using more tools to be online and to not necessarily lose what we've gained in the area of Zoom church. But there are people worried about how can we manage it all? There's a lot to pull off, so to speak.
And the whole piece about young people is, for instance, my husband's parish, they call them, there are digital missioners, and they were, older people, and they recruited younger people and said, how can we do this better? But also, what matters to you? What is your, what would you like to see? And that's, and they come up with some ideas that frankly, those of us who are older might not have come up with, and they've really been life-giving.
Thank you. We have a question from Terry Bays, and then we have another question after that from Leslie McKellar. Go ahead, Terry.
Sorry, I was getting multiple pop-ups on my all of a sudden on my computer. When I think about continuing online worship, I'm reminded of what Katie Mears has talked to the bishops and canons about the honeymoon phase of a crisis, when people are all banding together and saying, we're going to get her done, which is a great Province V value, right? We're going to make it work. We're going to try new things, and we're going to be forgiving of mistakes. And I wonder whether part of the barrier for people for continuing to do multiple types of worship at once, and I'm doing this because it's juggling, right, is that expectation under quote unquote normal circumstances that we have high production values. And so it's mostly just an observation, but I would be interested in whether you have ideas about how we might preserve, in some sense, the gameness, right? The risk-taking, tolerant of I don't know, bumpiness in our congregations that was going on during the pandemic.
Yeah. We're not going back to the way it was. I mean, that's the first thing I think we all need to begin to understand, or at least take into our spirits, because, it reminds me of people who talk about the good old days in the church, which frankly weren't the good old days for everyone, right? Back in the 50s and 40s. We're not going back to the good old days of, again, good old days, pre-pandemic. If in fact we are reaching more people and we are making, hybrid worship and online tools are making it possible for more people to participate in different ways, then I call that a mandate, a call from God to go into the world and offer what we have to offer. And I know that in the Diocese of Ohio, the bishop and staff did a wonderful thing. They made grants. They took some money, made it available. I think they probably had Dawson Council approve some money to help with tech grants to provide financial support for congregations, especially smaller ones, to purchase various technologies. I think my husband's parish was able to purchase a new video camera. So diocese, that's one possibility for diocese to provide that kind of financial support. But everything's up for grabs. I just saw briefly in the chat that, what are the parish boundaries? What are the parish bounds? That it's all different now. It's not everything's up for grabs, but an awful lot is up for grabs. And so for those who want the comfort of how we've always done things, this is not a comfortable time. But the fact is, we're not going to be able to do everything exactly the way we always have. For those who want a challenge, who are excited about new ways of proclaiming the gospel and being connected to one another, they've got a big field to work in terms of how we move forward in the coming months and years.
We had a request that you might elaborate a little bit more on history and future linked to baptism that you in your talk.
No, that's a great quote from Gary Hall, and I'll send to Heather the link to that article. I think what Dr. Hall means by that, although I'm careful not to speak for him, but that really that who we are as a people is, of course, in many ways we're a hierarchical church, but in fact I think we're, and certainly Bishop Hollingsworth in Ohio talks about this all the time, we're really a circle where we all have different functions, where we are all invested with baptismal authority, that ultimately there's no such thing as a bishop without a community, right? There's no such thing as a priest without a community. That our baptism is really our primary ordination, as people used to say. Baptism is everyone's original call to ministry. My primary identity, yes, I'm a priest, I've been a priest for a long time, but my primary identity is as a baptized Christian. And so what I do is, I know people reread their ordination vows. I always want to reread the baptismal covenant and what was promised on my behalf. So I think that our governance, our polity as a church, where we distribute executive authority, where we share in our governance, we share decision making, is rooted in baptism. It's rooted in the people of God, rather than let me give you an example. I had people say, why don't we just have General Convention online? And then I'd go into a decline thinking about a Zoom meeting with 872 deputies. And somebody said, well, why don't we just change General Convention so it's shorter and just have a committee that would decide which resolutions we'll consider, which just makes me start to sweat. Because what is unique about us is we're not top down in what we debate and consider, what we're able to vote on. We're bottom up. that we say that, deputies, bishops, provinces, dioceses, interim bodies, all those people can submit a resolution for the consideration of General Convention. So yes, in some respects we're hierarchical, but actually we are a church that says the body of Christ through baptism is the most important piece of who we are. Not that we don't need, the way we've constructed our polity and our governance. I'm not, what's the word? I'm not denigrating ordained ministry. I'm just saying that baptism, and I think this is what Dr. Hall is saying, is at the heart of who we are and is at the heart of the mission of the church.
Thank you. We have a question from Lee Kaufman, which is actually very tied into the baptismal covenant. Where can I find out how our parish can do a parish racial audit? So for those who don't know, there was a racial audit done of leadership of the Episcopal Church and also at local levels. And it's still being digested by the groups that participated. Do you know much, Gay, about what next steps might be there?
Well, I know that no. I know that there's been a huge amount of work for the last 2 years on the racial justice audit of Episcopal leadership, but there are workshops that are coming up from the racial justice audit team that will be made available on a church-wide basis. And I think that within that audit, within those workshops, there'll be attention paid to how a diocese or a parish can do that. And I can, let's see, if you look in yesterday's House of Deputies newsletter, and if you don't subscribe to that, just go to www.houseofdeputies.org, and anybody, whether or not you're a deputy, can subscribe to that newsletter. The dates and times for those workshops are there. And you can also go to the 815, the Episcopal Church website. And I think if you type in racial justice audit or becoming beloved community, you will also see information about these workshops. So they're just beginning now to take the findings and spread it out throughout the whole church. And it really is really useful information. And I think we're going to be working with this material for some time to come.
Thank you. Let's see. The chat going on is great, and I'm just to my fellow executive board members, we will collect these, right, and we'll see what kind of fruit comes from the conversation. That's where some of the needs for networking and other things pop up. So thank you for the conversation there. Just want to give you an opportunity, Gay, to talk about legacy. Maybe you wouldn't ever think about a legacy for yourself, perhaps you have, but when you wrap up 10 years, what would you like people to remember about your time as president and all the different hats you've worn as the, on the executive council itself, which was how many years before you were president? Another 10 years before that?
It was a life sentence.
As a representative for the Anglican Consultative Council and the many ways in which that you've served the church, and not that you'll stop, but in this place that you sit right now.
I've helped a number of bishops do mutual ministry reviews in dioceses, and so sometimes they'll say, "Well, I want to set my legacy," and I said, other people do that for you. You don't get to say what your legacy is. Other people will decide what your legacy is. So I steer clear of legacy talk. What I have tried to do is, and there's, I'll probably have to do some reflection and maybe write an article or something closer to the time when we elect my successor, is that I hope I can look over these 10 years and say that I did my best to glorify God and build up the church. And that's really, you want to talk about a baptismal promise. that certainly is number one. Number two, though, is that the House of Deputies, which is my primary purview as president, is that I hope that the deputies have a greater sense of their appropriate role and importance in the governance of our church, that we are co-equal with the House of Bishops in determining the direction of our church and establishing priorities. I hope that deputies feel more connected. I have a great communications team, Rebecca Wilson, Jim Naughton, and Kathleen Moore. We spend a lot of time and energy and money to put together the website and the newsletter, so that deputies can, the House of Deputies webinars that are now taking place. So I hope that deputies have a greater sense of connection to each other and to the whole house and to the wider church. But mostly, like I said, that these 10 years working with deputies and working with the presiding bishop and his staff, with executive council, all to the glory of God and to build up the church, which we all love so much.
Thank you. Michael Booker tried to raise his hand before and wasn't able to. So if you would unmute yourself, Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, Gay, how you see the role of the provinces now that we're going to really a virtualized world where geography just doesn't matter in a way that it used to, that we can do things at a national and really, frankly, at an international level in a way that was not previously imaginable. In that world, why do the provinces need to exist?
Thank you. It's like hybrid worship. I think it's hybrid networking. I think the role, frankly, in terms of provinces, there are some provinces that frankly don't do a whole lot, and there are others who do an incredible amount. I meant what I said in my remarks, is that Province 5 is an exemplar in terms of making your, frankly, core mission networks, connecting people. And of course, it can happen beyond the 14 dioceses of Province 5, but I also think that context and location still matter. So that's the hybrid part. When you can get together in person, it needs to be geographically close enough that you can do that, because there, of course, there's still value in coming together. But to also have these kinds of online tools and opportunities available is enormous. I don't know, maybe at some point you'll open up some of your networks to a neighboring province or others. But I think that's, I don't know if that's part of your thinking or not, but for now, I think the hybrid approach is important. And so I would hate to see us really change provinces too much, especially when a number of, this province is lighting the way. And I also noticed in the chat that there are some joint networks happening between provinces, which I think is terrific. So I think it's a both and I think we're figuring it out. in this, I wish I could say post-pandemic world, but this world that has changed so much. And I really, again, commend Province V for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
I think it's always helpful to remember for those who may not, that the provinces create an avenue that wouldn't otherwise exist to have exposure to wider church-wide leadership. If I hadn't been elected through the province here, I don't know that I would have thought of or had the nerve to put my name in at the General Convention for Executive Council, and all the other many ways in which it's an entry point to church-wide leadership. If that was gone or somehow watered down, I think there'd be a lot lost. Any other questions? Well, that might be our natural pause then. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
for
It's
your
really been
time.
great to be with my province. Thank you so much.
And feel free to stick around. We know that you may not. And again, thanks, Gay. We'll see you before too long.
Thanks, everybody. I hope to see many of you in Baltimore next year. Hooray.
Yay.
Thank you.
Hooray, in person, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Jane, for your leadership during this meeting. Thank you, Gay, for being with us. Thanks for taking the time. And I love Michael's question because I get to talk about why the province is so cool. Okay, or at least why Province V is cool. Again, a little biased. And we do actually have some people not of Province V in this meeting with us. So they're coming, we are sharing between provinces to see how synods work. But the next piece that I would like to talk about is the biggest initiative that just launched in Province V is the Leadership Coaching Project. Hopefully you have been seeing announcements about this through the newsletter and through Facebook. But the Leadership Coaching Project was launched in this last year by Province V as a tool to help our leaders across the province. 4 years ago, I met Chris Holmes. He is a coach trainer. I participated in his first stage of learning about how to be a coach. And in those 2 days, I saw how coaching could benefit leaders across the church. There was suddenly a vision of a church where leaders had someone who was supportive and encouraging and challenging to reach new goals and dreams and dream those new dreams. So I often talk about the world that God dreams about, where people are building community and caring for one another. The work of community is hard, right? And coaches can help leaders navigate through the challenges and celebrate the amazing moments of transformation that can happen when we're working together to reach God's dream. That was the vision that I saw when I first experienced coaching. When I watched Chris working with each of us, when I saw us practice coaching each other. As I shared that experience with others, they also saw the value of coaching and how coaching could benefit leaders across the province. So we are grateful to the Diocese of Fond du Lac for also seeing that vision and applying for a grant from the Rowan Ridge Fund. We are grateful that the Rowan Ridge Fund recognized how coaching could support leaders, especially those in rural areas. As of today, we have 17 professionally trained coaches, and 5 more will begin their training on May 4th. These 22 coaches are available to you. The Leadership Coaching Project is about you, the leaders of the church. And 10 of those leaders are rural area ministry specialists. So if you're in a rural area with fewer than 20,000 people in your town, you can call me and get coaching for free. You can contact one of those coaches directly and get coaching for free. That's the work that Rowan Ridge put into that. All coaches are available to anyone to be able to reach those goals, dream those dreams, get through those stuck parts. Ministry, as I said, ministry is not easy. We've talked about the challenges, especially of pandemic. So these coaches are available to you, any lay, any clergy leader. You can call them up to help navigate life and ministry. So some people keep talking about, well, what does coaching really look like? You know, coaching is not mentoring, it's not spiritual direction, it's not counseling, right? People use coaches to talk through new ideas and goals. It's all about vision, future casting. Is there something that you've been dreaming about doing? A coach can partner with you to help you start making plans and then rolling out that new thing. Are you hoping to have better life and work balance? A coach can partner with you and walk with you as you schedule that new pattern. The Leadership Coaching Project has also recognized that we're in this weird place with this pandemic, that it's hard. The word languishing keeps coming up. You know, they have recognized that this is a time of great challenge and also great opportunity. So the Leadership Coaching Project has made a video. Let us take a look at a message from them.
In the spring of 2020, everything changed overnight. How we work, how we eat, how we live, and how we worship.
In the spring of 2020, everything changed. We've learned new skills we didn't want.
We've worked to stay connected in a time of isolation. We've worked to stay united in a time of division. We've worked to stay hopeful in a time of tremendous losses.
During the pandemic, we lost our familiar ways of being church. We felt confused, worried, grieved, and exhausted.
And we learned again that God is present with us in the hardest times.
God is present with us in the hardest times.
God is present with us in the hardest times.
We learned that we are creative, resourceful, innovative, and beloved.
As hope returns, as we plan new gatherings, as we look ahead, God's Spirit is speaking in our lives, in our community, in our vision of the future.
Planning for a new way of doing things feels exciting and also challenging.
What comes next? How do you make a plan? Coaches can help.
Free sessions are available for individuals, for groups, for teams.
We're the Leadership Coaching Project.
We're the Leadership Coaching Project.
We're the Leadership Coaching Project. We're here to help you move forward.
Visit province5.org/free coaching for more information.
In response to what we see as this challenging time, the Leadership Coaching Project wants to give you the benefit of coaching. So many of the coaches that are part of this project are offering 3 coaching sessions to you. So you'll be able to check out the webpage, province5.org/free coaching. Remember, all of the links and that video link will be sent to you so you can see that again. So if you have a particular thing, especially as you're thinking about the pandemic, how is it that we're going to do hybrid worship? How is it that we're going to pattern our lives? How is it that I want to be a leader in this time, in this place, in my parish, in the community, in the diocese? That's the offer that's being made to you right now. So any of the coaches are available to you at any time. You can see, again, there'll be a link, but province5.org/LCP for Leadership Coaching Project has a list of all of the coaches. Those coaches are available to you. The coaches who are offering the pandemic coaches are listed at that website. But if you are interested in coaching, I really encourage you to take a look. Give it a try. The one nice thing is every coach will offer you an introductory session. So if you're like, I have lots of questions, I don't know how this works, I don't know if the thing that I'm thinking about counts as coaching, I don't know if I need a couple sessions or many sessions, all of those questions can be answered through a coach. I am always available for any general questions that you have. Any of the coaches are available to do an introductory session. They will meet with you, they'll get to know you, and everybody in the cohort knows that you'll be interviewing probably more than one coach. We expect that you will be reaching out to somebody and saying, I want to get to know you and see if you might be a good fit. And I'm also going to talk to a couple more people. We all understand that and we encourage that. We want you to have the fit that you'd like also for your coaching. The province does offer guidelines. So before you call a coach, know that the recommended fee scale is $50 to $150 per session. Again, each coach works individually. If you have a particular need that you need support as a coach or to get coached, that you might be able to talk to somebody to offer assistance. I have some information about that. I know which diocesan offices might be offering support. Some of them have already reached out to me and said, my diocese wants to offer support for those who want to be coached. So there are resources available. There are also sliding scales, but I encourage you to make your get to know you session soon. I want to also take just a quick minute about the types of coaching, because sort of that video and our conversation so far has talked about really individual coaching, that one-on-one conversation where I call up Laura Jackson or Leslie McKellar. You saw them in the videos. I call up Aaron Gerlach and I say, hey, I want to coach. I want to talk to you about being coached. What does that look like? That's really just me working on my goals. There are two other types of coaching that this cohort offers. One is coaching clusters. So coaching clusters is where I gather 2 other people to be with me, or I work with a coach to gather a group of 3, and we work together at the same time. We probably have something in common. So we might all be priests, or we might all be vestry members, or we might all be senior wardens, or church staff members, or bishops, or committee chairs, right? We might have something in common, but we're working on our own piece. Like I want to work on my goals and my colleagues are going to work on their goals. So this coaching clusters situation allows for me to work on my things, but also to hear what else is going on, to be coached by just being in the room. Oh, I never even thought about that. Or, oh yeah, I have that problem too, but I didn't think about bringing it up, right? So that the coaching clusters situation offers a different type of coaching, a different opportunity. The third type is team coaching. So team coaching focuses on the team working together and trying to reach their potential or their next level. So we're familiar with teams, right? Vestries are some of our favorite teams, but church staffs, diocesan staffs, camp and conference center staff, parish committees, diocesan standing committees or commissions on ministry. Any team that you're on that you want to work together to reach a better goal might be a team coaching situation. So those are some other opportunities. Does anybody, if you have questions, you can drop those in the chat right now. I do have a couple of seconds to answer any questions that I may not have addressed. As always, I am available. If you have questions, comments, concerns, please reach out directly to me. Visit the websites to get to know our coaches, revisit some of the videos. There are a couple of videos up now so you can see the coaches, you can see a sample coaching session. What does it look like to be coached? Those sorts of questions. But Province 5 is super proud to have created this program. The executive board worked with me and with the Diocese of Fond du Lac and with so many dioceses who are being part of this project. Any coaches of color? Miriam, yes, one is finally getting trained this next time. If you are a person and you would like to be a coach, please call me. Coaches are available. Let me go through my head real fast. Yes, a Spanish speaking coach starts training on Tuesday, and there might be another person of color in there. And Betty is, thanks, Betty.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I can testify I have a coach from this program, and I'm really pleased with that. So there are a number of organizations affiliated with the province, as you already know about. We're grateful for their leadership and ministries. We call them the affiliated associations. And some were able to give us a little bit of video that we can have a look at, and not all of them, but this will give you just a little taste of the affiliated organizations of the province.
Greetings. My name is Waring Webb. I represent the Brotherhood of St. Andrew in Province 5. The Brotherhood is a ministry to men in the Episcopal Church authorized by the 2018 General Convention. Our rule of life of prayer, study, and service direct our brothers in following Jesus our Lord and Savior since 1883. Please visit us at brothersandrew.net or call me at 630-965-1411 to learn how to install a Brotherhood chapter in your parish. Peace be with you.
This is Mary Fran Chris from Church Periodical Club known as CPC, which has been in the business of providing printed or written material for ministry since 1888. We are here to serve the Episcopal Church and the global Anglican Communion. How do we do this? With contributions from organizations, individuals, and provinces. We supply materials, actually we supply the money for you to get materials for adult, children, youth, books, and we also send money to the seminaries. If you would like more information, please check our website, Church Periodical Club, and be aware that our website is going under construction. I am more than happy to help any of you look at what grants are available and also how you can help spread the ministry. Thank you.
This is Kathy Mank. I am the Province V ECW President, and I reside in the Diocese of Southern Ohio. ECW stands for Episcopal Church Women. It is a grassroots organization that is celebrating 150 years of ministry to women and girls in the Episcopal Church this year, 2021. Women in the province meet annually to network in sharing current women's ministries in their parishes and dioceses. They learn leadership skills, and they studied the biblical basis for our ministry in the world. Our annual meeting follows the Province Synod meeting today, May 1st, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Please check our website for more information, ecwprovince5.org. Thank you.
And we already have an inquiry about perhaps another affiliated group. So more to come on that. As you've heard about the
please check the number and dial again. Announcement for location 44245.
If you all mute your microphones if you're not speaking, thank you. The jewels in the crown of what you've heard about today, besides of course our talk with Gay Jennings, is our grouping of networks that have been growing over time. There's quite a lot of them. Again, our website will give you more information, but we do have a couple of words from several of them in a network video. So enjoy.
Hi, I'm Catherine Duffy, convener of the Creation Care Network. The Creation Care Network is for anybody, lay or ordained, that is interested in creation care ministries, environmental justice, or anything related to God's beautiful creation, like what I'm showing you out my window. We get together on the first Monday of every month at 10 Central, 11 Eastern on Zoom, and the Zoom link is on the Province V website. And we support each other in ministry. We share ministry ideas. We network with one another and get to know one another. And occasionally we get together and work together on ministry projects. We really look forward to having you join us.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Susie Schaefer from the Diocese of Michigan, and I serve as convener for the Dismantling Racism Network. I'm grateful to be part of a province where so many are taking this kingdom work to heart. In our province, we've received 15 different grants in the last 2 years from the church-wide Becoming Beloved Community initiatives. Our network gatherings happen quarterly, and we welcome anyone engaged in this work to share questions, resources, and encouragement for the gospel work of dismantling racism in our church and in the world. At our next meeting in May, we'll be talking about doing this work from young people and hearing from a team in Chicago about the children's curriculum they created for Lent this year. You can connect with our meetings or our Facebook group through the Province website.
Hi, I'm Stephen Simpkins from the Diocese of Ohio, and I am the convener of the Episcopal Network for Economic Justice in Province V. We are a relatively new group in the province. We share the various ways individuals, congregations, and dioceses are engaged in realizing economic justice in the church. Things like asset-based community development, alternative community investing projects, and worker advocacy, among other issues. You're welcome to come check out what we have going on in our network meeting that takes place on the first Thursday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central. Thanks.
I am Dave Penniman. I'm the convener for the Network for Ministry and Resort Communities in the Diocese of Western Michigan and serving at the Episcopal Church of the Nativity in Boyne City. Our network deals with the special issues and opportunities that come to us when we minister in resort communities. We meet by Zoom the second Tuesday of every month at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. We do hope you'll join us for the conversations of the Network for Ministry and Resort Communities.
Hi, I'm Marcia Ledford, and I have the honor of convening the Province V Public Theology Network. The members and I view our role as providing tools and resources for the faithful of Province V and beyond in order to do public ministry. And you may be thinking, okay, what does she mean by public ministry? And basically, it means speaking our faith in the public square to effectuate greater social justice. We meet on the third Monday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Central. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you at the Province V Public Theology Network events and meetings. Thank you.
This is Kathy Mank. I am the convener for the Suicide Prevention Network and reside in the Diocese of Southern Ohio. The Suicide Prevention Network is focused on equipping dioceses and parishes to start local ministries to raise awareness and provide training for preventing suicide. A second focus is ministering to survivors of suicide with grounding in theology and pastoral care. Our network is building relationships with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and Soul Shop, a faith-based suicide prevention movement. The clergy in the Diocese of Northern Michigan are in the process of formulating an offering for parishes to effect a cultural change and have conversations about suicide and suicide prevention. Please join us on the first Tuesday of each month at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central.
Hi, my name is Erin Wolf. I am from the Episcopal Diocese of Fond du Lac in Northeast and North Central Wisconsin. Today I am representing the Province V Youth Ministry Network. And while we are not gathering currently due to the demands of the pandemic on the time of student and adult leaders alike, we were fortunate enough to gather ahead of lockdowns in the beginnings of 2020 for a Province V youth event held at Bellwether Farm in the Diocese of Ohio. Make sure to check the network pages of the Province V website for contact information for our convener, Mackenzie Nill, and please join us and help us plan the next Province V youth event whenever that is able to safely happen again. Peace be with you.
Hi,
I'm the Reverend Stacy Allen, the chaplain at Brent House, the Episcopal Center at the University of Chicago, and the interim coordinator of the Province V Network for Campus and Young Adult Ministry. Our network consists of anyone doing work with college students or young adults anywhere in the province, including freestanding centers like ours, parish-based campus ministries, and joint Lutheran Episcopal endeavors. We support each other through quarterly conference calls, sharing resources and providing mutual support, and annual gatherings of chaplains and of students and young adults. Please feel free to be in touch with me if you would like more information. If you have a student that you would like to connect with one of our ministries, have a question about resources, or to be put on our mailing list.
Thank you so much to Anna, who put those two videos together. That was, and to all of the affiliated organizations. If you didn't see their video, please don't hold that against them. There's some transition happening between affiliated organizations and networking and how to define those within the province. And so please don't hold that against them. So thanks to Anna, Stanya, Diocese of Michigan, for making that happen. Also, I'm going to do some thank yous now because we're going to be moving into networking groups next. So as the coordinator of Province V, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I love my job. I love helping make connections. It is my job to help you do what you want to do. Again, this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, you should have received a newsletter. If you did not receive that newsletter, check your spam. If you did not receive that newsletter, give me a call or shoot me an email, and let's make sure that your email is correct. Thank you to the Synod planning team, who was part of making this happen, a subset of the executive board, Edward from Southern Ohio, Rick from Northern Michigan, Anna from Michigan, David from Fond du Lac, Jane, who is running double duty as vice president and the representative to executive council. So thanks for making today happen. Networks. So these networks are just an opportunity for people to gather together around an idea. If you have an idea for a network that hasn't yet been created, talk to me. That's my job. There are two new ones launching. They weren't even in the video. They're so new. One is Leadership in Parishes Without Clergy. So they'll have their first meeting in May. And the other new one that has a brand new announcement because the details were finalized yesterday. Migration Ministries. The Migration Ministries Network is going to host a neighbor to neighbor event. This will be May 18th. This is all in your newsletter that you should have received this morning. If you did not receive the newsletter, note that I put a link right there. There's a link where you could click on it. It will open up the whole newsletter and you can see it there. So May 18th, Neighbor to Neighbor is going to be an opportunity where we get to learn about this new network that's being launched by the Episcopal Migration Ministries Office. The network connects, Neighbor to Neighbor is going to connect newly arrived asylum seekers with nearby Episcopal congregations for support, guidance, and assistance. Please join us then to learn more about that and more about that network. So what happens next? So some of you may have participated in breakout rooms before. Today, we're going to offer you the opportunity to interview, visit with some of the network conveners. There are 7 groups available where you'll be able to visit with them. And how it's going to work is you get to choose which breakout room you go to. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see something that says breakout rooms. In a moment, I'm going to open the breakout rooms and you should have something pop up for you. You're going to click join to join that network. And you may jump between networks. You don't have to stay in one network for the next 20 minutes. You can move from network to network, talk to the conveners, talk to the other members, ask questions. And as always, I'm available back here in the main room. I think that should cover the instructions for that. So I'm going to hit open breakout rooms. You're going to choose where you go to, at least to start, and you can jump from network to network.
And we'll meet back here.
And we at 11:55, I will close down all the rooms and we'll meet back here for a dismissal, bishop's blessing, and a deacon's dismissal.
Heather?
Yes.
I have a question. For the conveners, are you going to put us in the room?
No, please choose your room.
Okay.
Yeah, so conveners, you'll need to choose your room. And
Heather, I did not see the join room at the bottom of my screen.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay, ready? Here we go.
Does everybody see it now?
Did it work?
Great.
No.
It should have popped up as a...
And it left
It
already.
says breakout rooms. Breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms.
We have a message from Marlene, our question, I think.
You said 11:55, Heather, is 10:55 my time because I'm in
Sorry,
Illinois.
11:55 Eastern, 10:55 Central.
I was thinking,
We'll meet back at this- yes,
just checking.
not to confuse the Central time.
Yeah.
Awesome. It looks like some people are able to do this.
Still don't have it was there momentarily. It popped